Hello everybody, this is the second part of the two-part video regarding the subject of direct taxation. In the first part, we had covered most parts of the Income Tax Act, and essentially the entire first part of the video deals with domestic taxation. And we had covered about 4 modules in the first part. So in this part, we start off with the fifth module. The fifth module should generally be dealing with those provisions of the Income Tax Act which deal with non-resident taxation as well as international taxation. The statute contains a large amount of provisions specifically applicable to non-resident Indians, but these are mainly in the nature of computational provisions. How a particular income is to be taxed, uh, what is the approximate rate of taxation, etc., etc. So, not much emphasis should be placed on these computational provisions dealing with non-resident taxation, but it is essential that the student should be given a broad overview so that in times of need he is aware that there are certain provisions which deal specifically with non-resident taxation. Now coming to international taxation, this is a highly specialized subject, and the Income Tax Act does not contain too many provisions regarding international taxation. One of the most important limbs of international taxation is the Double Tax Avoidance Agreement, which is governed by just one or two sections of the Income Tax Act. Now, under the international taxation part, there are 3-4 issues which need to be dealt with. The most important two issues which need to be explained in detail are the double tax avoidance agreements or the double tax treaties and the transfer pricing provisions. The double tax provisions or the double tax treaties are treaties which are not part of the Income Tax Act. These are bilateral treaties based on certain international models and are executed between India and another specific country. We have a large number of treaties with different countries in the world. So when this particular topic of international taxation and the treaty framework is taught, a brief overview of the structure, the legality, and the constitutionality involved in these treaties needs to be given to the students. Internationally, there are some models based on which the treaties are adopted by the countries. So the model which is adopted by India, and how is it different from the model which is adopted by the different countries, must be explained. Ideally speaking, a model tax convention which is followed by India should be picked up, and different parts of that model tax convention should be explained. A little bit of country treaties may also be explained, but by and large, if an overview of the model tax convention which is followed by India is explained, it benefits the students tremendously. I repeat again that this is a specialized course. This is a specialized part of the tax course, and care should be taken that the relevant judicial precedents as available in India as well as abroad must be culled out, case studies prepared and presented to the students. It appears complicated, but once it is the model which is being followed by India is broken down into smaller subparts, the students find it pretty easy to understand. A large amount of literature can be found on various websites which give brief overviews of the treaties. Ideally speaking, one of this should be picked up and made the basis to form the study material which should be provided to the students. Uh, uh, One or two model treaties like the Indo-US or the Indo-UK or the Indo-Singapore treaty should be picked up and should also be discussed in detail. Rather, it is interesting at times to take up the Indo-US and the Indo-Singapore treaty and to discuss them in detail along with the model. This way, This way, the students get a flair of the practical part of the treaty also. While discussing this, the relevant judicial precedents which deal with these two treaties should also be brought onto the classroom and discussed in great details. Making case studies here is extremely easy because a large amount of judicial precedents exist, and these judicial precedents can be converted into case studies, customized according to the needs of the class, and be presented to the students. The biggest problem in this particular module is the teaching resource with respect to international tax. The books which deal with international tax are generally expensive, but other than being expensive, it's difficult to get a publication which comprehensively explains the treaties. So some foreign articles, foreign books, etc., must be gone through, and a customized study material can be prepared. Preparing a customized study material is time consuming, but it is one of the best things that can be done by the faculty. The other important limb of international taxation, as is being practiced in India, are the transfer pricing provisions. These have come into the statute books about 20 years back. India is still low on the maturity curve. This particular transfer pricing provisions have a large amount of computation involved in them, and at times it is the economists who do the computation. But there's a large amount of law also involved in this transfer pricing provisions. So while the transfer pricing provisions are being taught, a short overview of the computational provisions should be provided to the students, but the stress should essentially be on the legal part. There has been a lot of judicial precedents which has developed over the last 10-15 years on transfer pricing, but we still look forward to international judicial precedents to help us interpret the Indian transfer pricing laws. Again, the Indian transfer pricing laws are based on an international model, so the applicability of the international judicial precedents becomes that much easier and simpler to appreciate. Both these provisions, the transfer pricing as well as the tax treaty networks, are highly specialized, and if possible, subject matter experts must be called in to give brief overviews or to explain certain aspects in depth as may be the requirement of the class. Subject matter experts are few, but they are available in India, and if approached, they are more than happy to come and share their bit of knowledge. While calling a subject matter expert, not only does the student get the in-depth knowledge of the topic being covered by these experts, but also gets a glimpse into the practical aspects of these provisions. So we can call subject matter experts, we can call out judicial precedents, and we can also call out international literature on this to complete this particular thing. It should be also borne in mind that this is a highly evolving topic, and a large amount of judicial decisions and policy changes are happening as the world changes. So, across the globe, international tax treaty networks are being amended constantly. So, these amendments must be brought about into the class and explained to the students. Now, we come to the sixth module, which should essentially consist of all the residual provisions of the Income Tax Act. Along with the residual provisions, the student must be explained the concept of tax minimization and the three primary modes of tax minimization, which are planning, avoidance, and evasion. The distinction between them as uh, as viewed by the tax administration and as viewed by the SSEs must be explained. The judicial precedents which exists in this particular um, domain must be discussed in great detail, especially the issues of tax avoidance. There are a large number of decisions in India as well as foreign jurisdictions wherein The issues of tax avoidance have been discussed in great detail. In fact, some of the international cases which deal with tax avoidance are legendary and must be discussed in the class to give the students a feel of what the practical world of tax planning is all about. Um, in this particular module, there's a large amount of interplay between the treaties whenever international transactions and international tax planning is involved. So, the treaties which are taught in the previous module must be correlated with the tax planning case studies which we prepare here. This again helps the student to understand what is international tax planning and what are international tax structures. Two important issues which need to be dealt with here are the provisions of general anti-avoidance regulations, or popularly known as GAR, and thin capitalization. Both of these have been added recently in the income tax statute and hence should be explained in great detail. Again, if required, a subject matter expert should be called in and be asked to explain the subjects, the topics in depth, as well as the practical interplay between the topics. Now, this generally is the last module, and with this module, we cover the entire Income Tax Act. Now, I have briefly explained what the modules should be. Of course, customization needs to be done depending on the course, the duration of the course, etc. etc. But another important thing which must be kept in mind is that this entire subject is evolving and is highly dynamic. So, the study material which has been prepared uh, should be updated constantly. That is why, in most of the cases, it is not proper to recommend a particular textbook, because one, a particular textbook is not available as such which would which would cover all aspects of the course, and secondly, because of the evolving nature of the statute, every time the book becomes outdated. So if a little bit of time can be spent, a proper study material can be prepared, and updation notes should be kept on a regular basis, and this material should be updated on a monthly or on a fortnightly basis. This will be of great help as we will move towards the teaching of this course. Now, depending on the format, this study material may be kept in the soft form or in the hard form as is required. Now, while delivering lectures for certain topics like uh, uh, like tax treaty networks, transfer pricing, the case study module must be applied, because I've also mentioned, as and when required in the previous modules, the need of case studies is a must. And the best way to prepare these case studies is to base yourself on judicial precedents, bring them out, and convert them into case studies. Uh, by and large, this covers the uh, entire topic for which these video presentations has been made. One thing that needs to be kept in mind is that whatever be the mode of teaching, constant updation in taxation is a must, and this must be followed regularly by the faculty members. And if constant updation is done, we will ensure that the daily newspaper, the tax news appearing in the daily newspaper, automatically finds place in the classroom and the students become that much more interested. Thank you very much.